vision and goals are two separate things. We both had goals.
Yeah.
And because our goals were similar, we thought we could walk in agreement together.
Yeah.
All we knew was our parameters were, this is what we're not going to do because we've seen all these goals fail. So we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. But we had no idea what we were going to do. What was our purpose and how we want to get there.
What's up, fam? Welcome back to the We Are Just Dating page. My name is Tim. This is my beautiful wife, Pauline, and you're tuning into another episode of the W Podcast, where you get wisdom in a word with the
Wheelers.
Hey, so we are so excited to have you all join us this week. We are talking about how do you know if a relationship won't last? How do you know when it needs to end? We're going to go there today, so make sure you tune in. Send this to all your friends because we have special guests joining us this week. We have Al and Gleesy Lambert. When I tell y'all this couple, they're people that have blessed us personally.
Absolutely.
We're not just bringing on somebody we don't know. These are people that have walked us through some hard things in our own relationship. And I know that the wisdom that we got, y'all are going to get that and so much more. So I'm excited. I'm just going to bring them on. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Let's just bring them on right now. How y'all doing?
Good. Welcome. We're so glad to have y'all. We're glad to be here.
Absolutely.
So I want to take it back because this is called We Are Just Dating. And the people probably want to know, how did y'all even meet? How did y'all get together? So can y'all actually tell us? And look, y'all been married for a while, so we got to go back a little bit.
Oh my gosh.
Look, it'd be hard for me to remember some stuff from dating, and it ain't been that long.
He's not saying you're old. He's saying that you're experienced.
So we would love to
know.
know.
The story has definitely changed. I feel like the story has definitely changed over the years of us telling the story. But more details have been released over time. I feel like they've just evolved where I was the one chasing him, and that's not how it happened.
Oh, is that true?
Come on now.
Oh. It's okay. You were a different person back then. Look.
Yeah. Gleesy was still the happy-go-lucky Gleesy she is now, but I was a different person. I was definitely like in a different headspace. So I wasn't chasing anybody. I was kind of like, you know, blinders on, doing my own thing. I wouldn't even talk to Gleesy. Yeah. I mean, that part of the story stayed the same. I wouldn't even talk to her. I would kind of just like go to work, do my thing, and she just kept talking.
We met at work. We met at work, and I guess Al was different than I was really, really young. Like I had just graduated from high school, so I did not have experience in dating, but I definitely saw something in him. I didn't necessarily know what it was, but I saw something in him that drew me to him. So I mean, I might have like dropped some hints that you know that there was some potential there, but he did majority of the chasing. But we met at work. It started off with just like a lunch date, and it kind of grew from there. I remember I couldn't go out with him by myself, so like I had to bring one of my friends along with us. My parents.
You really was young.
So you were like, are you like 19, 20? I was a baby. I think I just turned 18. Oh, but you were legal. That's good. I was. Yes.
What's the age difference?
We met like the month after I graduated from high school. And I feel like that, I'm telling you, I feel like everything in our dating was orchestrated by God. Because like, if I would have met him before I got out of high school, it would have been like, oh my gosh, he an old man, I can't date him. You know, so like everything happened perfectly. But it just started with, you know, conversations at work and kind of developed into a friendship. We had a few things in common, and we kind of held on to those things that we had in common and grew a relationship.
But let me tell y'all, so I had just got out the military. I didn't need to work, but I was bored at home, and I was just going to college, but I wanted to do more. I was like, I need more to do because I had just got out the military, and I had just come back from Afghanistan. So I went from 1,000 miles an hour to go down normal life, go to college, be a college student, and I was bored, like with just college. So I just took a job, and Gleesy was actually the supervisor. So that was one of the reasons I did
at
this
18. Okay.
Yeah, but I think she manipulated the schedule to make both of us kind of have to open up the store at the same time.
She was
And
using
that's
her powers, her authority.
Yeah.
Wait, so Al, how old were you at this time?
So I was 21.
Okay.
I had just,
She made it sound you were 40 and like the age difference was just so dramatic.
But 18 and 21, that's still
But you're both it's like freshman, senior. You're both college age.
I mean, I was in the military, so it was completely different. It was completely different.
So he was an old 21, is what you were saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was like,
fair.
Y'all see the jokes on social media? They're like, people that was 20 in 1950 look like they was fit, like they was.
You went through, like, you had responsibilities. You had already been to war. You already seen a lot of things. You weren't acting like you're regular. Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah,
that makes more sense. Okay.
Okay, cool. So y'all started dating. How long were y'all actually dating
before
you got married?
Okay.
We dated for 4 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And would you describe your relationship then? Would you say you guys did godly dating?
Parts of it.
Yes. So Gleesy was from a Christian home. Like, to even date her, I had to meet her father. I had to get permission. And he told me, if you want to date my daughter, you need to start coming to church. So that was the only way I was even allowed to date her. She had multiple ministers in her family and all of that. So I will say on her end, she had mentors. She had people in her life that kind of made sure that what she was doing was godly. Like, so I was 21, straight out the military. I had been on my own since 17. So I had no rules. Like, I did whatever I wanted to. And meeting her was kind of like bringing all that stuff to a screeching halt. Like, she had a curfew still when we were dating. So I had to get her back home by 10 o'clock.
Heck yeah.
So,
I mean, you're living at home. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
But again, getting out the military, it was like 10 o'clock. What is 10 o'clock? But I had to get her home by 10 o'clock. So it was a lot of rules that I had to get used to.
Yeah.
But because of the discipline from the military, I respected that. So I respected that there were boundaries there. And I used to tell her, like, she was the first woman I dated that even had a father in their life that I had to meet and actually gave me standards that I had to meet in order to date her. So there were like godly standards in place. However, I was still kind of on the fence of half ratchet, half trying to get my life together.
Right.
So I wasn't doing everything the right way.
Right.
Yeah. That's so knowing what you guys know now, are there things that you wish you could have changed about your dating path or that would have set you up for a better start to marriage?
Yeah, because I think you said the first year was one of the years that was like really, really hard.
Yeah.
I would say you have to have real conversations. We had
sugar-coated.
Yeah, sugar-coated, rose-colored glasses, whatever you want to call it, those fairy tale type conversations of, oh, when we get married, we're gonna have this kind of house and we're gonna work this kind of job, and one day we'll have 2.5 children and a dog, and like
I'm still waiting on my dog.
But none of it was not real. We didn't have any real conversations, and we even I still remember sitting in premarital counseling, and the issues would come up like, okay, how are you going to manage finances? Oh, Al's going to do it. Who's going to take care of the house? Oh, that's Gleesy's area. But we didn't have any conversation. It wasn't anything in detail, no real conversations. So what we would have done different is have those real conversations and understand that vision and goals are two separate things. We both had goals.
Yeah.
And because our goals were similar, we thought we could walk in agreement together. But we had no vision. We didn't know how to actually come into agreement. We hadn't had conversations about values so that we can even tie them to a vision. So the first year of our marriage was just making it up as we went along.
Yeah.
All we knew was our parameters were this is what we're not going to do because we've seen all these couples fail. So we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. But we had no idea what we were going to do, what was our purpose, and how we want to get there. So we would say, have real conversations. If you don't know how to build a vision, get around some couples that have one and find out how they got started on it and build out a vision. Now, that's if you're talking about getting married, of course.
Right.
You have to have a vision. That's the key thing, and that's in
Yeah.
every area: finances, raising children,
spiritual life.
Yes, your spiritual life, your careers. You have to have those conversations about all of those things.
What would you say? Because that's obviously really good, and I definitely 1,000% agree. But for somebody watching that feels like I don't even know how to start having these conversations, what would you share with them? What would you say? Like, hey, this is where you start. This is what you should be asking. What are some of those things?
We always say start with your values. So your values are those things that are non-negotiable. Those things that no matter what, I'm going to live by this standard. So you had to start with those values. So we always tell like couples that we kind of mentor or coach individually, get a notepad or whatever out and write down your top 5 values. Again, those things are non-negotiable to you. Those things that you plan to live by. Like if you say, what's a give an example?
Like I always go back to the Jesus over everything. So it's just like spirituality, or my relationship with God is very important.
Is number one priority. So maybe somebody writes that, and then somebody else writes something like, I'm going to spend intimate time with God or whatever. They wrote it in 2 different ways, but when you come back together after you wrote out your top 5 values, you start looking for those common threads. So somebody may have wrote Jesus over everything. Somebody else may have said, I want to spend intimate time with God. You're pretty much saying the same thing. So maybe your number 1 value as a couple is God, like God first or whatever. But you look for those common threads, and that's where you start your conversation. Your conversation should be, okay, I'm going to read out my top values and tell you why I selected this, why I selected that. You want to write 1 word, values, and then you have the conversation about why, and that's where you start. That's where you look for those common threads. And guess what? If there are no common threads,
like that's a sign to end it. As you were talking, I literally was thinking like, okay, well, I'm a single female and I'm dating a guy and we have this conversation, would that be a red flag? Is if I'm sharing my values with him, and maybe he doesn't have any values, or maybe our values don't line up, like kind of, because these are some questions that we've even gotten through JDU, is some people would ask, well, how many of your values need to align? What if it's 4 to 5, or what if it's 1 out of 5? Like kind of help people understand how to make this practical. And like, because I think sometimes people are battling with that scarcity mindset of like, well, this is the only guy I've dated in 3 years. It has to work. If only 2 of our values line up, like, is that enough to just keep moving forward? So talk to us more about those red flags and how to recognize them in kind of the dating stage.
So first, you shouldn't be dating somebody 3 years and never had the value conversation. But if you have, then that's the first conversation you need to have, is about those values, and have that conversation in person. So don't let somebody play you and you read out your top 5 and y'all on the phone or something, and now all of a sudden he's like, oh, I got the same thing. No.
So you need to write down in advance and bring it to our date.
Bring it to a date and have that conversation up front, and why. You could even exchange them and that's ask the other person, so why did you pick this? Why did you pick that? Have those real conversations. And again, that's kind of where you start. But the red flags are, you start talking about values. I really think we should work on our values and kind of write them out. And they like, what do you mean? Well, those things that you kind of, again, those guardrails, those things that are non-negotiable to you. I don't really, boom, like that's red flag number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like you probably should be kind of like backing away at that point. And we've facilitated this conversation for couples, and we've seen some where it's just like, yeah, this needs to end right now. Like,
Right.
because if your values don't align, what's going to happen is you may continue on with that relationship. You may even go all the way down the road to marriage, but it's going to raise its ugly head at some point in your life. You may be trying to buy a house. One person in the relationship is spending every dime comes in because their value is you can't take it with you when you die. So spend it all while you're here. And you're saving every dime, and then y'all start talking about finances, and you find out we don't align here. Guess what the number one reason for divorce is? So again, you just set yourself up for failure. Or you're talking about having children or whatever, and you just randomly you see a bad child in Walmart showing their tail like they on the floor, crying, screaming.
Stop talking about our babies.
No, that ain't happening. But you walk past and you like, man, I would wear them out if my child embarrassed me like that in the store, and they looking at you like, so you would just beat your child, and now all of a sudden you realize our values don't align there either. Like,
right.
It's so key to have those conversations, and you can bring it up at random times like that.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's when you start to see those red flags. Like, you know what? Like, this not going to work, because if we don't align here, there's no way we will align with a vision, and there's no way that we will have a purpose together, because our purpose start with values, our vision start with values.
Yeah. Now, would you say that's so good about like seeing those small moments, like when during your dating relationship, to bring up those values, because they're definitely there, right? Especially if you're dating for a fair amount of time and you're seeing each other, you're having conversations, like things will come up. It's just a matter is, are you paying attention? Or are you ignoring things and kind of just assuming like, oh, he didn't really mean that? We would keep talking about this quote that is coming up of when people show you who they are, believe them. And so many times when you're dating, like you see things and you're like, nah, they didn't really mean that. And you're like, no, they did. Like, don't ignore things like that. Talking about, wearing your child out, especially if that's something, because a lot of women do have that belief, like I don't believe in corporal punishment, or I don't want to beat my kids, or like kind of just that whole approach, like that would change your entire like culture of your family if one of you believes in discipline one way, and like I know no one's gonna come into it with like the same exact mindset, because we all grew up in different homes, but it is like a good thing to just not ignore those opportunities and talk about them when you're in the dating phase. So I love that. Now, with y'all experience working with couples that you've gotten to mentor and coach, what would you say are some major red flags that people, or common red flags that people overlook? They should be they should be backing away from the relationship, but they're kind of like either they're scared because they just want to be married so badly. And I'm bringing this up because I think there are a lot of people watching this that are like, yeah, sometimes my mentors, my friends, whoever tell me like to be, because no one's going to look up to you and say, you should break up with that person, because they're just going to just, ignore you. But maybe if they, kind of hearing it from an unbiased person and saying, like, hey, here's some common things that we've seen that I wish people paid more attention to. What would y'all say those are?
No.
So I would say first, stop dating potential and start dating purpose.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times, like, we see what we want to see, like you kind of mentioned. And so we try to create potential where there's no purpose. So we can see that all these red flags are popping up. Maybe they can't make a decision without their mama, or that's real.
Yeah.
Or they just don't. You ask them what's their vision for their life, and they don't even have one for their life. Or like we said, your values don't align, but we're physically attracted, or we like their career, or we see something that causes us to gloss over everything else. Or like, I don't know if they still talk about this, but we used to talk about EP, earning potential. Oh, well, they're here now and we think that they can move up in the company or whatever, but there's no purpose on their life. Like, they don't have a vision, they don't have a purpose, they're not actually working towards anything, they're just doing whatever the next thing is that comes along.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to date purpose, because purpose is what God brings two people together for. So if you don't have purpose individually, then what can you actually bring to the relationship so that God can bring purpose together to accomplish whatever he wants out of your union, out of your relationship?
Yeah. No, that's so good. You're saying, like, if you want your relationship to last beyond the hardships, beyond, the tough things that happen to all married couples, every married couple goes through hard times because life is hard, but your relationship, your marriage is not going to last if you don't have that greater purpose.
Yes.
For each other, and then also for yourself too, is knowing, like, okay, I can get through this because God has more for me, and God's going to use all this, just like y'all shared in the beginning with your own personal story of, like, God is using everything that happened to you that y'all went through for a greater purpose. But if you don't have that perspective, then you could just say, well, we should just break up because this is hard and this is not fun and I don't want to do this anymore. It's like, nope, that's not what you're here for. So help people kind of explain to us, like, what you would say. I would love to hear from both of y'all. Like, what would you say, purpose looks like in dating? We've talked about what it doesn't look like. And, like, if people don't even know what that word means, or, that's probably a good sign to just leave them alone. But what does purpose look like? Help, especially for our ladies, like, help them recognize, because sometimes with the potential thing you mentioned is very good. Like, I found people are like, oh yeah, well, he's cute. And it's like, he goes to church. And I'm like, well, what else? What else? So help us recognize, what does purpose look like so that people can push past the gloss and the shiny shoes and all of the kind of distracting things and say, that's a good man, that's a good woman that you should be paying attention to.
So I think, especially like when Elle and I first started dating, I said before, like, I saw a lot in him. So, like, when we would have conversations, like, he would talk to me in a way that I felt like I could talk to him for a long time. Or, when he talked about where he saw his life going, like, I felt like, oh, I feel like my life is going in that same direction. So I felt like we could walk together. When he talked about, just the different things that he wanted to do, like he wanted to travel, and I felt like I could walk in that same way. So I felt like my life could align with his because we wanted to do a lot of the same things.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
And again, just tying that together, again, you may think it's potential at some point, but the conversation should allow you to know its purpose, because purpose is directional. So purpose is the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. So it's a step by step. Like, when the person is speaking, what they're speaking is one step after next step after next step is all in alignment to achieve a greater purpose. It's not just a little bit of this, a little bit of that, this great dream here. Like, it's nothing wrong with having a dream, but you need vision to accomplish your dream. And again, if there's no steps, like, it's just that, a dream.
Right. That's so good, because one of the things that when Tim and I were first dating, or before I guess we officially were dating, we were interested in each other. I remember talking to one of our pastors about it, and what she, like, highlighted to me was, like, when Tim says he's going to do something, he does it. And she
said that about me.
She did.
Okay.
Well, she said that in so many words. She gave an example of that. I'm not trying to pull your business out there and, like, share what the example was, but that's essentially what she was saying. And she was like, I know it's a small, whatever the example was, I know it's small, but that's important. And she was talking about, a man with a plan. Like, that's something that you want when you're looking for a husband, and kind of deciding that. And I think that that's so good what you said, Al, about, like, directional purpose, because I think a lot of the girls that I've gotten to talk to, it's, you know, some guys really know how to sell dreams. They're like, I'm going to be a doctor one day and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And who's telling? Yeah, absolutely. Hope that, you know, you very well could become those things. But there starts to be kind of pause for cause when, like, you haven't taken steps to, you know, accomplish those things. And that's one thing. It's almost like you would rather that person say, I've tried and failed, rather than like, I've never done anything to pursue this plan. Yeah, so that's because also it's like, if that's how you handle your own life, how are you going to handle mine? If you say that if we join together and, you know, you say you're going to do this for me, you know, for our family, but you can't even do that for yourself. And Tim always talks about that with like leadership. Like, you're really just responsible for leading yourself when you're single, you know, before you're married, before you have a family. And if that's a hard thing, then it's going to be really, really hard when you get married.
Absolutely. So I want to transition a little bit and talk about conflict, because I feel like a lot of people have misconceptions about conflict. Some people think it's bad. Some people have never seen healthy conflict. So I would love to know, how do you all approach conflict, and is how you approach it now different than what you did when you were dating? Walk us through that.
So I'll talk about the conflict when we were dating, because I came from a household where the silent treatment was normal, yelling, unhealthy conflict. Like, so I didn't really understand or know how to deal with conflict other than, okay, I'm going to shut down and I'm going to stop talking. You know, we just won't talk for a few days and then it'll be over, you know, because a few days have passed. I didn't realize that, no, we need to go back and have the conversation about what happened so that we don't keep making that same mistake or having this same conflict over and over and over again. So it took a long time for me to look at conflict in a positive way. Like, now I welcome conflict. We're gonna have a conversation. Okay, I'm okay with that, because I know on the other side of it, it's gonna be so much better. But it took to be probably, how long we been together?
16 years. Well, no, actually,
I'm about to say
total
20 years.
I'm thinking just married, but yeah, total 20 years.
Yeah, so it probably took me like 19 and a half years to figure that
out. 19 and a half years just yesterday.
But yeah, conflict was something that I really, really struggled with. And at times I still struggle, because I sometimes go back to what is comfortable or what is normal. You know, like we talk about different tools, and we had the conversation the other day, like, we coach other couples about how to deal with conflict. Like, we got to use the tools as well, you know? So like, it's still, if you're not intentional about dealing with conflict, you'll fall back to old habits.
Yeah, we call it your default. So everybody has a default. Everybody has that default from how you were raised. And when you're in conflict, if you don't grab a hold of a healthy tool, you will go back to that default. Yeah. And sometimes, even if you have the tools, you'll leave the toolbox or the tool bag over in the corner, and you'll pull out that default or whatever. And now all of a sudden you're doing a hand clap. Say one more time or whatever, like right back to that default. But it's so important to have those tools. And it's also important to just kind of know that walking in agreement does not mean that you agree on the solution every time.
Talk more about that.
That's good.
Yeah, we get wrapped around the old cliches of agree to disagree, or because we don't agree on a solution, then we just gonna scream it out, or we just gonna go in separate rooms or go down separate corners. But that's not what walking in agreement is. Walking in agreement is agreeing on a direction. Yeah. So you have to want to continue to go in the same direction together. Now, you may not agree on how to get there, but reconciling and, again, like, understanding the importance of vision is, again, we keep coming back to that, but understanding that it's always about going in the same direction. Now, some days Gleesy may be driving, some days I may be driving, but as long as we continue to go in the same direction, we will continue to pursue and reach purpose. Where the problem comes into play is when, again, like unhealthy handling of conflict is, I'm just tired of talking about this, so we're done. Or I'm just going to scream at you and belittle you to the point of you don't want to say anything else, and now I get my way. And it's not about my way or Gleacy way. Back to vision. Vision is your tiebreaker. Because when you sit down to write out your vision, you're coming to agreement before God. And you put it down on paper so that when you have that conflict, you pull it out and you say, okay, this is what we agreed on before God. This is what we're going to do. Boom. Argument, conflict, over. We have a little thing in our marriage where we say, if the disagreement doesn't touch vision, it's not a disagreement. It's not an argument. We're not going to argue about something that doesn't touch vision, because that means it's not that big of a deal. So you sitting there arguing about who's going to wash the dishes, but does it really touch like a vision or whatever? Go both of you wash the dishes. Stop being, petty or whatever. But quite often in marriage, you arguing about the smallest things, the stupidest things. But whatever area you don't have vision in is where the enemy is going to attack you. And because we fail to have vision in all of the key areas of our marriages, we get attacked all the time in different areas. The enemy can find little places to slide in your DMs and kind of get you off course.
Wow.
Yeah. So I talked about in the beginning of this podcast how you all helped us when we were dating, and we were having an issue that we just couldn't work out. And we came to you all, and you all really helped give us some fresh perspective and helped us walk through it. When would you suggest a couple that's dating, when do you suggest, okay, we're not figuring this out, we need to take this to somebody? Or even, how do you know what you should take to somebody and what you should realize we just need to break this relationship off?
How do you know what you should take to somebody? I would say anything that you don't have the tools to work on yourself. If you go buy a piece of IKEA furniture and you don't have the tools, like it don't come with the instructions, just like marriage don't, relationships don't, and you try to put it together and you realize, I need a screwdriver, but all I have is a hammer and a crowbar, like, you go get the tool. It's the same thing in your relationship. If you don't have the tool to work on the problem, you need to go to somebody that you know that has the tool. Right. Now, as far as when should you walk away, again, those red flags that if the person just has an unhealthy way of handling or dealing with conflict, and you have a conversation about it, perhaps, about the unhealthy way that conflict is being handled, and they kind of standoffish and they're like, this is what you often hear, this is who I am, take me as I am. Like, no. Yeah. Like, no, because it's not going to get any better. Yeah. It only gets better by having that self-awareness of it and actually repenting and actually trying to turn away from it and trying to actually develop into a healthier version of self. So like y'all was speaking of earlier, working in singleness, it should be all about getting to the healthiest version of yourself. And if you can't be that in a relationship, go your separate ways and work on becoming the healthiest version of yourself before you decide to join purpose with anyone.
And I think it's also important to be careful who you share things with. Yeah. Like, you don't want to share your conflicts or your problems with people that's just going to give their opinion. Because people's opinion are jaded based off of their experiences. Yeah. So like, we're talking about different things. Like, it's really important that we keep things like biblically based, because it's not our opinion. This is how the word tells us that we should handle this, and it's gonna work. Because
So just real quick, just a quick example of that, because we want to make sure people to understand that we would never hit you with the thous and the the Old Testament verses or anything like that. So that's not what we're saying. So for example, like a conflict acronym that we always use is STOP. So STOP is sit still. The word says, be still and know that I am God. It's talk it out. The word, again, talks about communication, about bringing other people, if you can't handle a conflict, into the conflict to act as a mediator. It's open your heart. again, like turn the heart of stone into flesh. It's pursue reconciliation. God talks about reconciliation, again, about being rebuilt, renewed, reborn, all of those things. So stop may be the acronym, and it may be modern with sit still, talk it out, open your heart, pursue reconciliation, but all of it can be tied back to God's word. Yeah. And we make sure that we do that because we want people to know that this is not about Alan Gleasy's way. This is about God's way. We believe in brag, build relationships according to God. Like, so again, we want to tie it back to God's word because without God's word, it's just opinion. Yeah. And opinion will get you in trouble in your relationship.
Right. No, I love that, what you were saying about tools and like, because sometimes when you're in a dating relationship, especially for people, like when we were dating, this was our first like Christian relationship. So you don't really know, like, is this how it's supposed to be? Like, even some people, you know, we've been asked, like, okay, well, what do Christians fight about? Like, y'all not having sex? Like, what's the problem? Like, it should be fine. And it's like, well, yeah, hopefully, but you could also be fighting about not having sex because you know, there's lots of things.
But you're just human. Like, humans are gonna have disagreements and arguments. That's just
right. But I mean, but for those who are listening who are single and they're like, well, I would never need any help, you know, like, and you may think that, and that's fine. But when you get into a relationship, especially if you're like kind of pulling and tugging with the Lord, like, is this somebody that I should marry? Is this not? Like, those are obviously very serious decisions that you want to make sure that you are making with the utmost peace and something you're excited about. But then, of course, like the enemy does attack couples. Like there's conflicts that come up, and conflict in a relationship is a good thing. But it's not. Oh, no one's ever going to handle it perfectly. So I love that you said, because you know, even if you realize like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I think that's the moment you need to ask for help. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing, or what you're doing isn't working. Like, one or the two, both of them will come up. And I don't think that there really is any healthy relationship where you're like, yep, we got from, you know, first date down the aisle by ourselves completely. Like, we never had to ask for help. We were just perfect. Like, that's not real. So, and I hope that everybody who's listening will understand that. So you don't have to be ashamed when you do ask for help. And it also, I feel like it sets you up to have a healthy marriage, because a lot of people feel like, oh, if we go to a marriage counselor, then our marriage is sick. And it's like, well, no, you should be going to the doctor for wellness checkups. You only go to the doctor a lot when you have something going on, but you should be going there at least once a year. So it's like, you can do check-ins as well, you know, with mentors, with counselors, just to make sure. So I love that you said that, you know, if you don't have the tools you need, or you just don't know what the heck you're doing and you're confused, like, don't let it get to where it's really bad and y'all are like fist fighting to ask for help.
Right.
Another red flag. Another red flag.
Yeah.
So if there was a final thought that you would share with the audience, and both of you can go or you can do it together, what would be a final takeaway you would want to share with someone that's single, that's listening, or someone that's dating and they're trying to figure out, is this person the person I should get with or should break up? What is kind of a final thought for them?
I would say first, somebody once heard somebody say dating is a process of exclusion, not inclusion. So it's not about trying to find as many people as you can to date or to fit into your world. It's about excluding those that don't fit into your world and aren't going in the same direction that you're going in. And then I would say to those that are dating, like, understand that if you have purpose on your relationship, there will be conflict.
Yeah.
And that's not abnormal. It doesn't mean turn and run, but it does mean turn and look for solutions, turn and look for those mentors, turn and look for those coaches, turn and look for those individuals that aren't gonna give you cliches and a bunch of quotes or whatever. They're gonna tell you the real. They're gonna tell you the stories, and they're gonna tell you how to overcome and how to grow your relationship and always grow forward.
Yeah. And I would add to that, to get around some community. Our last couple of groups that we've done has had a lot of dating couples in it. And our group is usually advertised as like an engaged or married couple group. but we welcome dating couples. And it's so important that you see where you want to be. If you want to be married, you should be around some married people so that you can start to develop those tools and skills that you need to be successful. So I think just getting around other healthy people is so important, even when you're dating.
Right.
Yeah, that's so good. Now, where can people find y'all? Shout out all your Instagrams and social medias and all that stuff. Where can people connect with you all?
So first IG, so at Forever.i.do, again on Instagram. Then they can also find us on YouTube. Same thing, at Forever.i.do. We have links in our bio that will tie you to some of the things we've been talking about. Our Brag Vision ebook that'll help walk you to vision. And if you ever need any help with it, you can book a brag session with us and we'll help walk you through the vision building process and through developing those conflict management tools.
Yeah.
And again, you can find us also on YouTube. If you just want to look up some of our merge videos for some of those tools, you can check us out on YouTube and connect with us there as well. Always feel free to DM us or email us. Again, link in our bio on IG.
Yeah, that's great. And we'll definitely make sure we link all of that. I didn't even know y'all had an ebook. That's awesome.
Yeah, we'll definitely link the ebook.
So we'll definitely make sure we put that in the description so people can have easy access to that. Alan Gleason, we just want to thank y'all so much. This has been great, and I really think people are going to have some clarity about red flags that they need to be mindful of. But I also think some people are probably going to finish this video and I need to start writing down my vision. What's my vision? What's my purpose? Where am I going?
Exactly.
And I'm excited. I think there's going to be some good fruit that comes from this. So thank y'all so much. Yeah. This has been another episode of the W Podcast. We will see y'all next week.
Bye.
See y'all.
Thanks for watching this video.
To get more Christian relationship advice, subscribe to our channel.
And make sure you check out our other videos as well.